those of you who do not have jobs now and are looking for a job, think about what it is that you may have been missing and why the universe is helping you by not giving you a job now, so that you have to deal with some issues and make some changes. So let's just take a minute, and you're going to think about what you do at a basic level. And how that translates up into something that's really cosmically sacred. Now, those of you who are having a lot of trouble at your job or have lost a job, why don't you go in and look at that and see what that's telling you? The universe right now, we're going through a change of age where the spirit is getting very close to matter. And where before we used to be able to tolerate doing something that wasn't really what we were supposed to be doing, nowadays we can't really do that anymore. And what happens is, if you're not listening that you should be making a change, either in attitude or in job, first it knocks. Then it shouts a little bit louder. And then it kicks you in the butt. So before you get kicked in the butt, listen. For example, when I was at the United Nations, I was supposed to be working with energy, but I wanted to work with something else. Well, I ended up getting sick from electromagnetic poisoning. And the only way that I could deal with that to cure myself, because nobody knew what to do, was to learn to see energy myself. That took me almost to the point of death before I decided I better learn. Now, I'd like to, would you mind if could I ask you something?
Sure.
All right. Now, you say right now you don't have a job. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about how the universe is helping you and actually showering blessings on you by taking you out of some place that you were and moving you into a new opportunity, and what that might be, and have you recognized it?
That's what I've been agonizing about. I was divorced 3 years ago, and I'm an empty nester now, living by myself just this year. And so the reality of getting a job, not so much for the money, but for what am I supposed to be doing? And I've spent a lot of the time going to healers and seeking and reading stuff and just trying to learn as much as I can about different things like energy and minerals and all the stuff that I've always been fascinated with but never really had time to do. So I think the higher thing of that is healing myself, is healing one person in the world, and that's cool because that one person healed is the world too. If you look at it in a cosmic thing, and I'm a microcosm for everybody. So
that is an excellent point. And what you're saying is where all of us eventually have to get to before we change. And that is that each of us is a microcosm. And if we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Now, this brings up an energy when you're dealing with the mundane, as we're talking about, when you're dealing about healing, and you're going in and you're looking at yourself. For instance, women. Let's take women's issues. Women have not been valued, and so very often one of the first things a lot of my clients have to deal with is to value themselves as a woman, not as a servant. Not as one who takes care, but as themselves as being valid. Now, you need to know that when you're doing this, you're actually have to deal it through a number of levels. You first have to need to deal with yourself. You have to deal with your family's heritage, because that's a bloodline coming through that you need to change. And then as you change that, you also move into the morphogenetic field of all women everywhere. So you here are related to those women in other countries who aren't allowed to talk, aren't allowed to be educated, aren't allowed any of these things. So when you're saying, I am worthy, and it comes back to you, you know, you're lower than a dog, or you're lower than that, and you say, no, this is not anything in my consciousness, where is it coming from? You're right, but you've expanded your consciousness to universal woman, and now you have to be able to handle the polarities of, wow, you know, Madonna, and wow, you know, the prostitute, the Madonna and the prostitute, the two coming in balance, the person, the queen, and the one who is lower than a dog and not worth being on earth. So all of these are aspects of identifying with a certain frequency that it goes throughout the universe. So the same holds when you have a job. If you're in a job that is not honored, that's no different from not being honored for your sex, for your race, for your religion. That's another way that our society has tried to define and control. And are you going to allow that to affect you and to everyone else in your job? For instance, a receptionist who has to handle, she has the worst job. He or she has the most difficult job in the whole company. She's there getting all of this coming in, handling the phones, handling the people, can't close any door and have it peace, and yet everybody says, you know, how come you didn't do this? How come you didn't do that? Well, is she gonna let that affect her, or is that her way to learn that what she does is just as important as everything else? So once she learns that who she is good, and that position is good, then she no longer needs to be in that position. Or it doesn't affect her and she can go into it at a deeper level. So either one, she's learned it. Now she can do what her guides want her to do, which might be to be an advertising executive. And then when she comes in and she sees the receptionist, she'll never treat them like that. Or she's going to be looking at the energy, all right, now I know that when people come in, how I receive them affects everyone else. So I will consciously be loving and to everyone who comes in, and she changes the attitude of the entire office. When you come in the morning, if the receptionist is there and going, "Arr," well, you know, it gets so, oh God, I can't take it, let me go in the back door. But when it comes in, she's saying, good morning, how are you? It's so nice to see you, Karen, you know, great, isn't this a great day? Then you say, you know, I love coming in there. She always makes me feel like $1 million. So that's very important. And then you go beyond that to what is the spiritual significance of myself and how I carry my own energy. So have you thought about how you want to maybe change, you know, your orientation?
By orientation, you mean what I've been doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really. The most recent thing has been just an idea to move to another country, actually, to live for short periods of time. I don't know how it relates to anything, but that's.
Well, now that brings up a point. Lots of times when you're not satisfied, you want to move, and I can speak from experience in that. I've tried all these things, you know, so I'm a very good person to speak on this. You name it, I've tried it. Anything to escape having to deal with the fact that actually everything's in here. And so I traveled a lot, most of the world, and everywhere was fascinating. But I always learned that the old saying, you know, everywhere I went, there I was. So that it ends up coming back and saying that you have to do the work. And I've had just about every position in the company too, from receptionist and waitress to president to, spokesperson for large organizations. And still, with all of that you're doing, it always comes back to the same thing. Who you are is what counts. It doesn't matter what you do. So then what do I do? And that's where you need to go in and really work with your guides. You have very nice angels standing behind you right now. If you would just listen to them, you get some good help. So
I try. It's not coming through. I really do try to listen to them.
All right. When you are working with your guides, and then we're going to take questions, we're almost at the end. When you are working with your guides, you have to give them permission to speak to you, because this is a free will universe. And when you were kids, you told them to shut up, because that's what your parents said. They're not real. And you're seeing them, and you're hearing them, and your parents are saying, do you want to go to the crazy farm like Uncle John? There is no angel over there. Stop doing this. So you said, you don't exist. Don't talk to me anymore. So now you have to backtrack, and you say, all right, announce, I know that you're there. I can feel you. I admit it. I can feel that I'm getting help. I know somebody's telling me not to go down that street, and I found out there was an accident there. Not to do this, and I found out if I'd done it, I would have been bad. Somebody is helping me. Please make yourself known. I give you permission, connect with me. Now, then you sit quietly, and that connection could come either in feeling, a little breeze, or your finger starts to move, or you hear something, or you see a light. Each of us experiences this in a different way, but each of us does have people who are looking after us and that we need to work with to help us. And the last thing I want to do, and then I'll take a question, is when they come and speak to you, these are beings from other realms. You are in charge of the physical earth. They're in charge up there. They need you to act down here. You are their colleague. You're not inferior to them, okay? So they are going to work with you to manifest something here on earth, and that's the attitude you want to take. When it comes down, if you can hear it up there, you get the whole experience as a shot. You see and you understand. If you're not seeing it and they need to bring it down, they start stringing it out, and then you start hearing it. They start taking the most important thing and bringing it in your ear, and people get earaches. Now, when you get that, that's your guides trying to get information in. So you announce to the universe, please go a little slower. Please adjust your frequency, and just one of you speak at a time. And then you kind of tune the radio, because you have to tune it to their frequency. It's like if you want to hear the FM station and you're tuned to jazz, you're not going to hear FM. And then you tune it, then all of a sudden you will get that information. So now, is there any questions, or I want to close with anything that I didn't cover that you really wanted to know about that I can answer? You have a question, I can see.
Well, I have a couple of them. One is, are there any entities that you can tune into that are not good for you, that are not the best entities for you?
Are there any entities that could tune into you that are not the best? Yes, there always are. There are coyotes. There are, it's not only in the physical people are trying to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. Also takes care in other planes. And one good way you know if it's a trickster is if they're saying, listen to me, I'm going to make you famous, rich and famous. I'm going to teach you everything. A very good example is Christ's sojourn in the desert, and how they offered him the whole world if he would follow. And he said no, he was standing it. So you have to know that your guides only want the highest truth for you, and they want you to grow. And they are not interested in your being the king of the world. So as soon as that comes, that's a trickster. The second thing you want to do is you want your intent. What you are seeking is a very powerful force. The next thing is, if you start to realize that this is a trickster, you have the free will right to tell that trickster to leave and not come back, and that trickster must obey, because that is the universal rule. So if it comes in, you say, you do not belong here, I do not want to hear you, you have to leave. And then you can call in your angels, who are sitting there until you learn that you need to work with them for it. So, okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And you had another one?
I'm still not sure as to how you know what you're supposed to be doing, whether you're supposed to be the secretary or the
All right. Whether
head
you're
of the ad agency or what.
You know, it doesn't matter what you are and what your job is. That's just the vehicle that's teaching you the lesson that you need to learn. Whether I was a receptionist or the head or the thing, I had to keep learning the same lesson, and I had to learn it this way and this way and this way and this way until finally all the pieces were, no, I'm going to escape here, I'm going to escape there. And all of a sudden, all of the strands like pulled, and I saw that, oh my God, this was the lesson I was supposed to learn, not any of these. So go back and look at yourself and see if every time a job you have, it's actually something that you're wanting to learn or that you have to learn and master, and it's not so much the outer. Do you see?
Mm-hmm. I do, but when you're writing a resume, even knowing that it's not the outer, how do you know what you want to go for?
You have to ask your guides and allow serendipity to come. And you have to allow that when you're working with guides that things are not going to happen the way you think they should. In fact, that's how you really know you're working with your guides, is if funny, strange things happen. When you're working with guides, they want 80. When I first started working with guides, I tested them. I come from Missouri, maybe. And the guides and I agreed that if they could tell me what was going to happen next week on the Thursday afternoon, they told me what it was. If it happened, I would have to agree that I was talking to somebody real and that they were able to see in the future. So I agreed, because I said, I know what I'm doing next Thursday afternoon, and I'm not doing that. Well, next Thursday afternoon, all of a sudden I was doing that. I didn't remember it, and all of a sudden this little voice said, well, now do you believe? So when you have a real guide, you can test them, and they will give you the test, and they will let you do it. So I want to thank you all very, very much for participating and for being part of this discussion in the role of the mundane, and I hope that you've learned a bit. And thank you. I also want to thank Infinity for hosting this series. And it was very, very nice to be part of it. Thank you.